The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. In all that time, war had been a simple thing. Two fleets would meet. They would fire weapons at each other. The side with more ships and better shields would win. This was how it had always been. This was how it would always be. Then the humans arrived. Ambassador Vexnar of the Kelvani Empire stood before the council chamber. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he tried to find the right words. The other ambassadors watched him with growing concern. Vexnar was known for his calm nature. He had negotiated peace between the Dravok and the Centauri. He had ended the resource wars of the Outer Rim. Nothing disturbed him. Right now, Ambassador Vexnar looked terrified. "They did what?" asked High Counselor Meritek. Her voice echoed through the ancient stone chamber. "They filled the cargo holds of their transport ships with rocks," Vexnar said. His voice shook slightly. "Then they accelerated those ships to near light speed and crashed them into our battle fleet." Silence fell over the council. The representatives of 47 species looked at each other in confusion. "Rocks?" asked Ambassador Grell of the Vorten Collective. "They used rocks as weapons." "The physics is simple," Vexnar explained. "Mass times velocity equals kinetic energy. A rock moving at 90% of light speed carries more destructive force than any plasma weapon we have ever built. Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They could not stop 1,000,000 tons of iron ore moving faster than anything in the galaxy." "But that is," Ambassador Grell struggled to find the right word, "that is not how war works." "The humans do not seem to care how war is supposed to work," Vexnar replied. 3 weeks earlier, the Kelvani Empire had made what they thought was a simple calculation. Humanity controlled only 12 colony worlds. Their fleet consisted of just 40 combat ships. The Kelvani had 800 worlds and 4,000 warships. When humanity refused to hand over their mining rights in the Epsilon sector, the Kelvani responded the way they always did. They sent a fleet of 200 ships to teach the humans a lesson. None of those ships came back. High Counselor Meritek leaned forward in her seat. "Tell us exactly what happened, Ambassador, from the beginning." Vexnar activated his data pad. A holographic display appeared above the council floor, showing the battle records. "Our fleet arrived in the Epsilon sector on standard approach vectors. The humans had only 8 combat vessels in the area. By all normal calculations, we should have won easily. Admiral Corvus ordered the fleet into attack formation." The hologram showed the 200 Kelvani ships spreading out into their classic wedge pattern. The human ships hung in space, not moving. Then the human commander sent us a message. She asked if we were sure we wanted to do this. Admiral Corvus laughed and told her to surrender. "What happened next?" The human commander said one word. She said, "All right." Then she ordered her ships to retreat. Our fleet followed. We thought they were running. We were wrong. The hologram shifted. It now showed the human ships leading the Kelvani fleet toward a small moon. We followed them for 3 hours. Our sensors showed nothing unusual. No reinforcements, no hidden bases, just empty space and that small moon. Admiral Corvus was confident. He ordered the fleet to close distance and prepare for battle. Vexnar paused. His hands were shaking. Then the moon exploded. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Ambassador Grell stood up from his seat. "They destroyed a moon. How?" "They had placed antimatter charges in its core weeks before we arrived. The entire thing was a trap. The explosion alone killed 30 of our ships, but that was not the worst part." The hologram showed the moon breaking apart. Massive chunks of rock flew outward in all directions. The debris field moved at incredible speed. Our ships tried to evade, but there was nowhere to go. 50 more ships were destroyed in the first wave. The survivors tried to retreat, but the human ships had circled around behind us. They were waiting. "They planned this," High Counselor Meritek said. Her voice was soft with disbelief. "They knew exactly where your fleet would be." "Yes, and that was only the beginning." The hologram showed the surviving Kelvani ships, now reduced to just over 100 vessels. They were trying to regroup, but something strange was happening. Their systems were failing. Our navigation computers stopped working. Our targeting systems went offline. We discovered later that the debris from the moon contained millions of tiny machines. The humans call them nanobots. These machines attached themselves to our hulls and began eating through our electronics. "They weaponized a moon," Ambassador Grell said. He sat back down, his legs suddenly weak. "They turned a celestial body into a weapon." "And nanobots," added another ambassador. "Machines too small to see. How do you defend against something you cannot see?" Vexnar continued his account. "With our systems failing, we could not fight back effectively. The human ships picked us apart, but even then they showed their creativity. They did not just shoot at us." What else could they possibly do? They hacked into our communication systems. They played loud human music through every speaker on every ship. They sent messages to individual crew members, telling them their families were safe and that they should surrender. They projected images of human children onto our bridge screens, asking us why we wanted to hurt them. Our crews were confused, scared, and demoralized. Psychological warfare, High Counselor Meritek whispered. They attacked your minds as well as your ships. In the end, only 12 ships escaped, 200 vessels destroyed by 8 human ships, some rocks, tiny machines, and music. Vexnar turned off the hologram. The humans have done something terrible. They have brought creativity to war. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Every ambassador was processing what they had heard. For species that had waged war for thousands of years, the concept of using such unconventional methods was deeply disturbing. High Counselor Meritek finally spoke. What are the humans demanding in return for peace? That is the strangest part, Vexnar replied. They are not demanding anything. They have asked only for recognition as equals. They want to trade, they want to share ideas, they want to be part of the galactic community. After destroying 200 of our ships, they claim they were defending themselves, and according to council law they were. Vexnar looked tired. We attacked them first. They responded. The fact that they responded in ways we could not predict does not change who started the conflict. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human flagship Relentless, watching the stars through the main viewport. Behind her, her crew worked in quiet efficiency. They had won a great victory, but there was no celebration. Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. Admiral, said Lieutenant Kim from the communications station, we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Put it through. The face of General Marcus Webb appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with grey hair and tired eyes. Behind him, Sarah could see the chaos of the Earth Defense Council Command Center. Admiral Chen, outstanding work in Epsilon Sector. The Council is very pleased. Thank you, General. What are our orders? The Kelvani are mobilizing their main fleet. Intelligence suggests they are sending everything they have, over 3,000 ships. Sarah felt the weight of those numbers. Humanity's entire military consisted of 40 combat vessels. Even with their advantages in creativity and unconventional tactics, those odds were crushing. How long do we have? 3 weeks, maybe 4. Sarah nodded slowly. Then we have work to do. Send me everything we have on Kelvani fleet movements, their supply lines, their communication networks, everything. Already on its way, Admiral. The Council has given you full authority to conduct this defense however you see fit. Whatever you need, you will have. Understood, Chen out. Sarah turned to her bridge crew. These were the finest officers humanity had produced. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, artists, and dreamers. That was the secret of human warfare. They did not just train soldiers, they trained thinkers. Everyone to the war room, she ordered. We have 3 weeks to figure out how to defeat an enemy that outnumbers us 75 to 1. The war room of the Relentless was designed for exactly this kind of problem. Holographic displays covered every wall. Data streams flowed across multiple screens. In the center of the room stood a massive tactical table showing the entire sector. Sarah's senior staff gathered around the table. Commander James Park, her tactical officer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, chief scientist, Lieutenant Commander Ahmed Hassan, head of cyber operations, and Specialist Maya Tors, who had once been a professional magician before joining the military. That last one always made the alien species laugh. Why would a military want a magician? They did not understand that magic was simply another word for misdirection, illusion, and making the impossible seem real. 3,000 ships, Commander Park said, studying the display. Even if we had 100 moons to blow up, we could not stop that many. Then we need to think differently, Sarah replied. What do we know about Kelvani military doctrine? Dr. Vasquez pulled up a data file. Their approach to war has not changed in 6,000 years. They believe in overwhelming force, superior numbers, direct confrontation. They see war as a numbers game and they always make sure they have the bigger number. That is a weakness, said Specialist Tors. Predictability is always a weakness. Agreed, Sarah said. What else? Lieutenant Commander Hassan spoke up. Their computer systems are advanced but rigid. They use the same encryption protocols across their entire fleet. Once we crack their code, we have access to everything. Have we cracked it? Hassan smiled. We cracked it 3 months ago. We have been listening to every Kelvani military communication since then. Sarah felt a spark of hope. What are they saying? They are terrified of us. The reports from Epsilon Sector have spread through their fleet. Crews are refusing deployment. Officers are resigning. The High Command is dealing with the first case of widespread military disobedience in Kelvani history. Fear, Tors said softly, the greatest weapon of all. Commander Park frowned, but they are still coming. 3,000 ships, even with scared crews, is still 3,000 ships. Then we need to give them more reasons to be afraid, Sarah said. I want ideas, anything goes, no suggestion is too strange or too impossible. For the next 6 hours her team brainstormed. They drew on everything humanity had learned in its long history of conflict. They studied ancient battles from Earth, the Trojan horse, the tactics of Hannibal, the guerrilla warfare of Vietnam, the cyber attacks of the 21st century. They also looked beyond war. They studied magic tricks and confidence scams. They analyzed how movies created suspense and fear. They examined the psychology of horror and the mechanics of propaganda. Slowly, a plan began to form. We cannot defeat them in a straight fight, Sarah summarized. But we do not need to, we just need to make them believe that fighting us is not worth the cost. How do we do that? Park asked. By showing them that every step they take toward our worlds will cost them dearly. We make the journey itself a nightmare. We turn their advance into a horror story. Dr. Vasquez looked uncertain. Admiral, what you are describing, it goes beyond traditional military strategy. Yes, it does. The Kelvani understand traditional strategy. That is why they think they can beat us with numbers. We need to show them something they have never seen before, something they cannot understand or predict. Tors nodded slowly. You want to make them afraid of the dark. I want to make them afraid of everything. Every asteroid could be a bomb. Every signal could be a trap. Every shadow could hide a human weapon they have never imagined. By the time they reach our worlds, I want them so paranoid and exhausted that they cannot fight effectively. The plan had several phases. First, they would seed the Kelvani approach routes with thousands of decoys. Some would be real weapons, most would be harmless, but the Kelvani would have no way to tell the difference. Second, they would launch a massive disinformation campaign, false reports of human superweapons, fake transmissions about devastating new technologies, rumors of alliances with mysterious species from beyond known space. Third, they would conduct surgical strikes at unexpected times and places, never enough to destroy the Kelvani fleet, but enough to keep them off balance. Every time the enemy thought they were safe, something would explode. There is one more element, Sarah said, the most important one. She pulled up an image on the tactical display. It showed a small device no larger than a hand. This is a prototype from our research division. We call it the Ghost Signal. It can project false sensor readings across an entire star system. With enough of these deployed, we can make the Kelvani see things that are not there. How many can we make in 3 weeks? Park asked. If we dedicate every factory we have, thousands. Hassan leaned forward with interest. We could make them think they are fighting a fleet 10 times our size. We could make them think they are fighting ghosts, Tors added with a smile. Enemies that appear and disappear, ships that cannot be hit because they were never really there. Sarah looked at each member of her team. This will not be a battle, it will be a magic show, and by the end the Kelvani will believe that humanity can do anything. The preparations began immediately. Human ships scattered across the approach routes, laying mines and deploying decoys. Ghost signal devices were hidden in asteroids and debris fields. False transmissions flooded the communication networks. And throughout the galaxy, other species watched and wondered what the humans were planning. On the colony world of New Beijing, human children played in parks while their parents worked in factories producing ghost signal devices. None of them knew the danger they were in. Sarah had ordered that civilian populations be kept unaware of the true scale of the threat. Fear would not help them, only action would. In the asteroid belts of the outer colonies, teams of engineers worked around the clock. They were converting mining vessels into weapons platforms, hiding explosive charges inside innocent-looking rocks, and programming autonomous drones to patrol the darkness between stars. Specialist Tors spent her nights recording messages, thousands of them, each one designed to be played to Kelvani crews at specific moments. Some were threatening, some were friendly, some made no sense at all, which was entirely the point. Confusion was a weapon too. Grand Admiral Korvax stood on the bridge of the Kelvani flagship Eternal Victory. Through the forward viewports, he could see the assembled might of his fleet, 3,200 warships, the largest military force the Kelvani Empire had deployed in centuries. It should have filled him with pride. Instead, he felt only unease. The reports from Epsilon Sector had spread through the fleet like a disease. Every crew member had heard the stories. The exploding moon, the invisible machines that ate through ship hulls, the music that played while warriors died. Some said the humans had weapons that could destroy stars. Others claimed they had allied with ancient beings from beyond the galaxy. Korvax knew most of these stories were exaggerations, but even the truth was disturbing enough. How did you fight an enemy that turned moons into weapons? Admiral, said his tactical officer, the fleet is ready to begin the advance. Korvax nodded, signal all ships, we move forward, standard formation. The massive fleet began its journey toward human space. The first 2 days passed without incident. Korvax began to relax slightly. Perhaps the humans had exhausted their tricks at Epsilon Sector. Perhaps they had nothing left. On the 3rd day, the problems began. Admiral, we are detecting anomalies ahead. Korvax moved to the sensor station. What kind of anomalies? Unknown, sir. Our sensors are showing thousands of contacts. Ships maybe, or weapons. They appear and disappear at random. Korvax studied the display. The contacts flickered in and out of existence. Some seemed to be moving at impossible speeds. Others sat perfectly still before vanishing completely. Send scouts to investigate. A squadron of fast ships moved ahead of the fleet. They reached the area where the contacts had been detected and found nothing. Empty space. No ships, no weapons, no debris. Then one of the scouts exploded. What happened? Korvax demanded. Unknown, sir. The ship just exploded. No warning, no incoming fire. It was there and then it was not. The remaining scouts retreated quickly. Their crews reported seeing nothing. Whatever had destroyed their companion was invisible, undetectable, and lethal. Korvax ordered the fleet to proceed with caution. Progress slowed to a crawl as every asteroid, every piece of debris, every empty region of space was scanned and rescanned. The ghost contacts continued to appear and disappear. Over the next week, 37 more ships were lost, some to invisible mines, some to sudden malfunctions that seemed to have no cause. 3 simply vanished without a trace, their final transmissions showing nothing unusual before cutting off mid-sentence. Morale in the fleet collapsed, crews stopped sleeping, officers spent their shifts staring at sensor displays searching for threats that might not exist. Some ships reported hearing strange sounds in their communication systems, whispers in human languages, laughter that came from nowhere. Korvax knew it was psychological warfare. He told his crews that the humans were playing tricks on them, but knowing something was a trick did not make it less effective. Fear was fear, regardless of its source. On the 12th day, the humans showed themselves. Admiral, contact bearing 047, single ship, human design. Korvax felt a rush of relief. Finally, a real target. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel. Over 100 ships opened fire. Plasma bolts and missile salvos streaked across space toward the lone human vessel. It should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, the weapons passed through it as if it were made of smoke. It is not real, Korvax realized. It is a projection. But before he could issue new orders, more contacts appeared. 10 ships, then 50, then hundreds. Human vessels emerged from every direction, surrounding the Kelvani fleet completely. How many ships do they have? Someone asked, their voice shaking. These are not real, Korvax insisted. Our intelligence says they only have 40 combat vessels. These are projections, illusions. Sir, how can we tell which are real and which are not? That was the question Korvax could not answer. The human ships looked identical on sensors. They moved with perfect coordination. They even transmitted the same energy signatures. Any one of them could be real or none of them. Then the ghost fleet attacked. Weapons fire erupted from the projected ships. Most of the shots were also projections, passing harmlessly through Kelvani hulls, but some were real missiles fired from hidden positions, real beams that cut through shields and armor. The Kelvani fleet fired back desperately, but they could not distinguish between targets. For every real ship they hit, they wasted 100 shots on phantoms. Their ammunition supplies dwindled, their energy reserves dropped. And through it all, music played, human music, piped through every open communication channel. Strange rhythms and alien harmonies that seemed to mock the chaos of battle. Korvax watched in growing despair as his fleet fell apart. Ships collided with each other in the confusion. Captains abandoned their posts. Some vessels simply powered down and stopped responding to commands. Then Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen. Grand Admiral Korvax, she said calmly, I believe we should talk. Korvax stared at her image. This human female had, with fewer than 50 real ships, reduced his fleet of over 3,000 to chaos. She had done it without fighting a single proper battle. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want to offer you a choice. You can continue this attack. You might even reach our worlds eventually. But how many ships will you have left? How many crews will still be willing to fight? And what will you find when you get there?" "Threats. Facts. Everything you have experienced so far was just the first layer of our defenses. We have more, much more. Things you cannot imagine because you have never thought the way we think." "What is the alternative?" "Peace, real peace, not the kind where you conquer us and we submit. The kind where we actually talk to each other, where we share ideas and technology, where both our peoples benefit." Korvax was silent for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew watched with exhausted, hopeful eyes. "You would share your technology with us. Some of it the helpful parts, the parts that heal instead of destroy." Admiral Chen smiled slightly. "We are quite good at creation as well as destruction, Grand Admiral. We simply had to show you the destruction first because that is the only language your empire seems to understand." Korvax thought about the choice before him. He could continue the attack and lose most of his fleet to an enemy he could not understand, or he could accept peace and perhaps gain something far more valuable than conquest. "How do I know this is not another trick?" "You do not," Chen admitted, "but that is what trust is, taking a chance on someone else's good intentions. It is how relationships begin, whether between individuals or between species." Grand Admiral Korvax made his decision. "All ships cease fire," he ordered. His voice was steady though his hearts were pounding. "Signal the human commander, tell her we accept her offer to talk." The bridge crew stared at him in shock. This was unprecedented. Kelvani fleets did not negotiate during battle. They fought until one side was destroyed. "Sir," his second officer said carefully, "the High Command will not approve of this." "The High Command is not here. I am, and I will not sacrifice 3,000 crews to prove a point that has already been disproven." Korvax turned to face the viewport. "The humans have shown us that our way of war is obsolete. We can either adapt or die. I choose to adapt." The Galactic Council was in an uproar. News of the Kelvani retreat had spread across known space within hours. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been stopped by a species that had been in space for less than 2 centuries. "This changes everything," High Counselor Meritek said. Her voice was barely audible over the shouting of the other ambassadors. Ambassador Vexnar stood in the center of the chamber, trying to maintain order, but even he was struggling to process what had happened. "The humans have requested permission to address the Council," he announced. "They wish to propose a new framework for galactic relations." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the entrance. Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the room. She wore a simple uniform without medals or decorations. Behind her came a small group of human diplomats and scientists. "Thank you for receiving us," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "I know many of you are afraid of humanity right now. I want to explain why you should not be." Ambassador Grell stood up. "You destroyed a moon. You used invisible machines to eat through ships. You created illusions that drove trained warriors insane. How can we not be afraid?" "Because we did all of that in defense of our homes," Sarah replied. "The Kelvani attacked us. We had 12 worlds and 40 ships. They had 800 worlds and 4,000 warships. What would you have done?" The chamber was silent. "We did not seek this war," Sarah continued. "We do not seek any war. What we want is the same thing every species wants. Safety for our people, opportunities for growth, a chance to explore and learn and create." High Counselor Meritek leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing?" Sarah activated a holographic display. It showed the known galaxy, with the territories of various species marked in different colors. For 12,000 years, this council has operated on one principle: the strong take what they want, the weak submit or die. That is why the Kelvani attacked us. They were strong, we were weak. By your rules, they had every right to conquer us. "Those rules have kept the peace," Vexnar said. "Have they? In the last 1,000 years, there have been 47 major wars between council species. Billions have died. Entire civilizations have been erased." Sarah shook her head. "That is not peace, that is controlled chaos." "And what alternative do you suggest?" Sarah changed the display. Now it showed a complex web of connections between worlds. Cooperation, real cooperation, not just trade agreements and non-aggression pacts. We are talking about sharing knowledge and resources, solving problems together, building something greater than any single species could build alone. Ambassador Grell laughed bitterly. "You speak of cooperation, but you just demonstrated that you can defeat any of us. Why should we believe you want partners rather than subjects?" Because of what we brought with us. Sarah gestured to one of the scientists behind her. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward, carrying a small case. This contains the complete designs for our medical nanobots, Sarah explained. The same technology we used in war, but the original purpose of these machines was healing, not destruction. They can repair damaged tissue at the cellular level. They can eliminate most known diseases. They can extend healthy life by decades. The chamber stirred with surprise. We are giving this technology to the Council freely, no strings attached. Every species represented here will have access to it. Why would you do that? Meritek asked. This is clearly valuable technology. You could trade it for great advantage. Because that is not who we want to be, Sarah said simply. Humanity has a complicated history. We have done terrible things to each other, wars, genocides, oppression, but we have also learned from those mistakes. We know that hoarding power leads only to conflict. We know that real strength comes from cooperation, not domination. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of ambassadors from dozens of species. We brought creativity to war because we had no choice, but we would rather bring creativity to everything else. Medicine, art, science, exploration, those are the things that matter to us. Those are the things we want to share. Vexnar spoke carefully. What you are proposing would require fundamental changes to how the Council operates. It would require species that have been enemies for thousands of years to work together. Yes, it would. It would require trust between species that have no reason to trust each other. Trust has to start somewhere. We are willing to go first. High Councillor Meritek rose from her seat. She was ancient by her species' standards and had served on the Council for over 3 centuries. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched countless species make promises of peace that they never kept. But something about these humans felt different. You have shown us that you can destroy, she said. Now you wish to show us that you can build. This is a strange approach to diplomacy. Sarah smiled slightly. We are a strange species. That you certainly are. Meritek paused, considering her next words carefully. The Council will need time to debate your proposal, but I believe we should take it seriously. These humans have demonstrated that they think differently than we do. Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. The debate that followed lasted for weeks. Every species had concerns. Every ambassador had questions. The humans answered them all patiently, explaining their ideas, offering concessions, finding common ground where it seemed impossible. And slowly, something remarkable began to happen. Species that had been enemies for millennia started talking to each other, not through formal channels but directly. Scientists from different worlds began sharing research. Engineers compared notes on problems they had been trying to solve for centuries. The humans had not just proposed a new way of doing things, they had demonstrated it. By giving away valuable technology, they showed that cooperation was possible. By fighting creatively instead of destructively, they proved that strength did not require cruelty. 3 months after Admiral Chen's speech, the Galactic Council voted to adopt the Human Cooperation Framework. It was not unanimous. Some species refused to participate, but for the first time in 12,000 years, the majority chose peace over power. The changes began slowly. A joint research project here, a cultural exchange there. Human doctors traveled to Vorten worlds to demonstrate their medical technology. Kelvani engineers visited human colonies to study their unconventional ship designs. Not everyone was happy. On some worlds, protests erupted against the new policies. Traditional leaders warned that cooperation with humans would weaken their species. Some predicted that humanity was playing a long game, lulling the galaxy into complacency before striking. But the skeptics grew quieter as the benefits of cooperation became clear. Problems that had plagued civilizations for centuries were solved in months when different species worked together. New technologies emerged from the combination of different approaches. New forms of art and music blended cultural traditions in ways that amazed and delighted billions. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. Admiral Sarah Chen, now retired, stood on the observation deck of Unity Station. The massive space structure hung at the center of what had once been the Epsilon sector, the same region where humanity's war with the Kelvani had begun. Now it served as the headquarters of the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. Through the viewport, she could see ships from dozens of species coming and going. Kelvani cruisers docked alongside human freighters. Vorten research vessels exchanged data with Centauri exploration craft. A Dravok medical ship was preparing to depart on a mission to the Outer Rim, carrying medicines developed through a collaboration of 7 different species. Quite a view, said a voice behind her. Sarah turned to find former Grand Admiral Korvax standing nearby. He had aged noticeably since their first meeting. The Kelvani did not live as long as humans, and the stress of the past years had taken its toll, but his eyes were bright with something Sarah had not seen in them before: hope. "I never imagined I would see anything like this," she admitted. "When I was planning the defense of human space, I was preparing to die. I thought at best we might slow the Kelvani down enough for some of our people to escape. And instead you changed everything." Korvax moved to stand beside her at the viewport. "Do you know what the strangest part is? When I reported our defeat to the Kelvani High Command, I expected to be executed. Instead, they asked me what I had learned." "And what did you tell them?" "I told them that we had been fighting wars wrong for 6,000 years, that we had been so focused on numbers and strength that we forgot wars are fought by thinking beings. The humans did not beat us because they were stronger. They beat us because they thought in ways we could not understand." Sarah nodded slowly. "That was always our advantage and our curse. Humanity never stopped thinking of new ways to hurt each other. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of violence. But you also spent thousands of years learning to work together, finding ways to solve problems without violence, creating art and music and stories that brought people together." Korvax paused. "That is what the Council species never understood about you. Your creativity was not just about war, it was about everything." Through the viewport, they watched a new ship arrive at the station. It was unlike anything either of them had seen before. Part human design, part Kelvani, part half a dozen other species. The first truly cooperative starship, built by teams from across the galaxy working together. "The Explorer," Sarah said softly. "I heard it was completing its trials. It exceeded all expectations. The combination of different technologies has created something far more capable than any single species could have built." Korvax looked at Sarah with something approaching admiration. "That is another thing you humans do. You make others want to work with you. Even species that should be enemies find themselves cooperating when humans are involved." "Is that a compliment or a complaint?" "Perhaps both. Your people are unsettling. You change things wherever you go. You question rules that have existed for millennia. You suggest ideas that sound impossible until suddenly they are not." Sarah laughed quietly. "We cannot help it. Humans are not comfortable with the way things are. We always think they could be better. And that," Korvax said, "is why the galaxy will never be safe again." Sarah looked at him sharply, but she saw no hostility in his expression, only a kind of weary acceptance. "Safe from change, I mean," he clarified. "Before you arrived, the galaxy was stable, predictable. Every species knew their place. Wars happened, but they followed rules everyone understood. Now," he gestured at the busy station around them, "now nothing is certain, everything is possible. That is terrifying for species like mine, who have spent thousands of years valuing stability above all else." "But it is also exciting," Sarah suggested. "Yes, that too." Korvax was quiet for a moment. "My grandchildren are learning human music. My son is working on a joint research project with human scientists, things that would have been unthinkable when I was young. The galaxy your people are building is chaotic and unpredictable and sometimes frightening, but it is also alive in a way it never was before." A chime sounded through the observation deck. Sarah's assistant appeared in the doorway. "Admiral Chen, the ceremony is about to begin." Sarah nodded and turned to Korvax. "Walk with me." Together, they made their way to the station's main assembly hall. It was packed with representatives from every species in the Cooperation Initiative. Humans mingled freely with Kelvani, Vorten, Centauri, and dozens of others. The room buzzed with conversation in 100 different languages, all translated seamlessly by the universal communication devices that had been another gift of multi-species cooperation. High Councillor Meritek stood at the center of a raised platform. Despite her advanced age, she remained the most respected voice in the council. When she raised her hand, the room fell silent. 5 years ago, humanity joined our community. 5 years ago, they showed us that war could be waged with creativity as well as force. And then they offered us something far more valuable, a new way of thinking, a new way of being. She gestured at the assembled crowd. "Look around you, 50 species here together not because we must be but because we choose to be. Scientists working to solve problems that have plagued us for millennia. Artists creating works that blend our cultures in ways none of us could have imagined. Explorers preparing to venture beyond known space not as conquerors but as seekers of knowledge." Meritek's eyes found Sarah in the crowd. The humans brought creativity to war, but they also brought creativity to peace, to cooperation, to hope. And yes, the galaxy will never be safe again, safe from stagnation, safe from the comfortable certainty of knowing tomorrow will be exactly like today. She raised her arms in a gesture that, across many cultures, signified celebration. The galaxy will never be safe again, and that is the greatest gift these humans have given us. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Different species expressed joy in different ways, but the meaning was the same. Something new had been born, something none of them fully understood yet, something that would continue to grow and change and surprise them for generations to come. Sarah felt Korvax's hand on her shoulder. It was a human gesture, one the Kelvani had adopted in the past 5 years. "You did this," he said. "We did this," she corrected. "All of us, that is the whole point." Outside the station, the Explorer began its departure, heading toward the edge of known space. Its crew of mixed species looked forward to the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges and wonders awaited them. They were scared, they were excited, they were alive. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the future waited. Not a future that anyone could predict or control, not a safe future or a comfortable one, but a future full of possibility, of creativity, of change. A future that humanity had helped create simply by being what they had always been. Dreamers, creators, troublemakers, the species that looked at a problem and asked not just how to solve it, but how to solve it in a way no one had ever imagined. The galaxy would never be safe again. And that was exactly how it should be.